Let's get right into it. Number 12. Phantom vibration syndrome. Your phone is not buzzing. It is sitting completely still on the table, face down, probably judging you. And yet, your thigh just vibrated. You reach into your pocket with the quiet confidence of someone who definitely has a text message, pull out your phone, and find absolutely nothing. No notification, no missed call, not even a spam email from a coupon app you downloaded in 2019. Just silence. And now you're standing there holding your phone like an idiot. Welcome to phantom vibration syndrome, a glitch so common that studies suggest anywhere from 68 to 89% of people who carry phones regularly experience it. Which, in case you're counting, is basically everyone. Scientists have a few working theories, and none of them are particularly flattering for your nervous system. The leading idea is that your brain has essentially been conditioned like a dog, except instead of salivating at a bell, you're hallucinating haptic feedback. After months or years of associating a specific physical sensation with social reward, a text, a response from someone who usually leaves you on read, your nervous system starts firing those signals preemptively. It's anticipation misfiring in your peripheral nerves. Another theory suggests your sensory cortex has simply become so hypervigilant about a certain region of your body that it starts inventing stimuli. Your brain is so desperate to not miss something important that it starts making things up, which is peak anxiety behavior, honestly. The nervous system equivalent of refreshing your inbox every 90 seconds. The troubling part? Scientists still don't fully understand why the brain commits so hard to this hallucination. It's not harmful. It's not dangerous. It's just your central nervous system apparently so socially anxious on your behalf that it's manifesting ghost notifications. We built the most complex biological computer in the known universe, and it spends part of its processing power convincing you that you got a text from your mom when you absolutely did not. Basically, your nervous system is throwing a surprise party for a guest who was never invited. Number 11. The tip of the tongue phenomenon. You know the actor. You know the actor. He's in that movie, the one with the thing, and he was also in that other film, the one your friend kept talking about last summer. His name is right there. You can almost feel the syllables forming. It starts with an M. No, wait, A-B. It's definitely 2 syllables. Or maybe 3. It's completely gone, and now you're going to think about this for the next 6 hours. The tip of the tongue state, technically called TOT by researchers who apparently love irony, is one of the most universally maddening experiences a human brain can produce. You are aware that you know something. You have access to partial information, the first letter, the general sound, maybe the rhythm of the word, but the full retrieval just won't complete. It's like having a file on your desktop that you can see but somehow cannot open. What makes this particularly interesting to scientists is that it reveals something deeply weird about how memory actually works. Memory isn't a filing cabinet. It's more like a web of associations, and retrieval is about activating the right nodes. During a TOT state, your brain has activated enough of the network to know the information exists, but not enough to surface it completely. Some researchers think related words that sound similar or are thematically connected, actually interfere with the retrieval process, blocking the target word like an overenthusiastic crowd at a concert. Here's the part no one talks about. The harder you try to remember, the worse it gets. Effort in this context is actively counterproductive. The classic advice is to think about something else entirely, and often the word just appears in your brain 20 minutes later, uninvited while you're washing dishes. Your memory works better when you stop demanding things from it, which is honestly the most passive-aggressive feature the human brain has ever developed. You're essentially in a hostage negotiation with your own hippocampus, and the hippocampus always wins. Scientists still haven't fully cracked why some retrieval attempts fail like this while others don't. Age makes it worse. Fatigue makes it worse. And being put on the spot makes it catastrophically worse. The name, for the record, was probably Jeff Bridges. Number 10. Déjà Vu. You walk into a restaurant you have never been to in your life, and the second you step through the door, something strange happens. The layout looks familiar. The way the waiter is standing. The specific angle of the afternoon light coming through the window. You have been here before. You are certain of it. Except you haven't, and you know that too, and now you're holding two contradictory truths in your brain simultaneously while the hostess asks if you have a reservation. Déjà vu, French for already seen, because of course the French named the feeling of experiencing reality incorrectly, affects roughly 60 to 70% of people at some point in their lives, and it remains one of the most stubbornly unexplained glitches in human cognition. Theories abound. Scientists have proposed everything from a brief misfiring in the brain's memory circuits to a momentary lag between your two hemispheres processing the same information at slightly different speeds. One compelling theory suggests that the brain sometimes initiates the familiarity signal, the feeling of recognition, slightly before it completes full memory retrieval, creating a phantom sense of "I've seen this" with no corresponding memory to attach it to. Think of it like your brain jumping to the conclusion of a sentence before it's read the whole thing. The familiarity detection system goes off, but when the memory search comes back empty, instead of quietly correcting itself, your brain just commits. It shrugs and says, "Sure, we've been here." This is not reassuring information about your brain's quality control department. What makes it worse is that you can't force déjà vu. You can't study for it. It just ambushes you in random parking lots and unremarkable Tuesday afternoons. Epilepsy patients who experience seizures in the temporal lobe often report intense, prolonged déjà vu right before an episode, which has given scientists a small window into its neurological roots. But for the rest of us experiencing the garden-variety 3-second version, still largely a mystery, your brain essentially ran a memory search, found 0 results, and filed a false report anyway. The confidence is impressive, honestly, for something that's completely wrong. Number 9. Earworms. Somewhere right now, without your permission, a fragment of a song is playing on a loop inside your skull. Maybe it's something catchy you heard this morning. Maybe it's a jingle from a commercial you haven't seen since 2007. Maybe, and this is the cruel part, it's a song you don't even like. It's just in there, cycling through the same 4 bars over and over again, completely immune to your attempts to stop it, as if your brain decided it needed its own terrible house DJ. Earworms, officially called involuntary musical imagery, or INMI, by researchers who clearly wanted an acronym nobody would ever use casually, affect an estimated 98% of people. Scientists at the University of London actually studied which songs are most likely to become earworms, and the pattern that emerged was genuinely annoying. Simple, repetitive melodies with a slightly unusual interval or rhythm. Songs that are predictable enough to loop but just surprising enough to keep your brain re-engaging. Your mind is not stuck on the song because it loves it. It's stuck on it because it's trying to finish a pattern it can't quite resolve. This is the key insight, and it's kind of fascinating once you get past the frustration. Your auditory cortex, the part of your brain that processes music, doesn't shut off when the song does. Keeps running the track in simulation, filling in what it expects to hear next. If the loop gets interrupted, or if it ends on a moment that doesn't feel resolved, the brain reloads it and tries again. You're not listening to a song. Your brain is trying to solve one. The recommended cure? Either listen to the whole song to completion, giving your brain the resolution it apparently desperately needs, or forcibly replace it with another song. Which works, except now you have a different earworm. Scientists have also found that doing a moderately engaging task, a puzzle, reading, light mental work, can interrupt the loop. So your brain gets stuck in a song because it's bored, and the solution is to give it something else to chew on. You are, essentially, distracting a toddler with a snack. The toddler is your prefrontal cortex. The snack is a crossword puzzle. Number 8. Sudden falling sensation while asleep. You're drifting off. Everything is peaceful. Your muscles are relaxing, your thoughts are dissolving into something soft and non-linear, and sleep is finally arriving. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, your entire body slams with the sensation of falling off a cliff. Your limbs jerk violently. Your heart rate spikes. You're awake again, gasping slightly, lying completely still in a bed that has not moved an inch. Your partner, if you have one, is now staring at you. This is called a hypnic jerk, sometimes a hypnagogic jerk, and it's one of those glitches that's incredibly common but has no scientific consensus on why it happens. Roughly 70% of people experience it, and despite decades of research, Scientists are still essentially arguing about the explanation in slightly more polished language than that. The leading theory is an evolutionary one, and it's wonderfully weird. As you fall asleep, your muscles relax rapidly. One hypothesis suggests that ancient, primitive parts of the brain misinterpret this sudden loss of muscle tone as the body falling out of a tree. Your brainstem, which has been managing survival responses since long before your ancestors had frontal lobes or opinions about coffee, fires a jerk response to catch you. The falling sensation comes after the jerk, as a post hoc explanation the brain generates for why your body just spasmed. You're not falling. You never were. Your lizard brain just panicked on behalf of an arboreal ancestor who hasn't been relevant for several million years. Other researchers argue it's simply a result of the transition between wakefulness and sleep causing misfires in the motor cortex. Some studies link it to fatigue, caffeine, and anxiety, so basically the conditions of being a modern human. There's also some evidence that sleep deprivation makes it worse, which means the worse you need sleep, the more dramatically your body interrupts the attempt. Your nervous system has exceptional comedic timing. You nearly drifted off, so it shoved you off a metaphorical cliff as a treat. Rest well. Number 7. Misophonia. For most people, the sound of someone chewing near them is mildly annoying at worst. A small, easily ignored background texture to the ambient noise of being alive. For a person with misophonia, that exact same sound, the soft, wet, repetitive noise of someone eating, can trigger a response so visceral, so immediate, and so disproportionate that it genuinely resembles rage. Not mild irritation, actual physiological fury, heart rate elevated, jaw clenched, an overwhelming urge to either leave the room or flip the table. Misophonia, which translates loosely to hatred of sound, was only formally described in 2001, and for most of its existence has been dismissed as an overreaction, a personality quirk, or a politeness problem. Here's the thing, it is none of those things. Brain imaging studies have shown that people with misophonia have physically different connectivity between the auditory cortex and the areas of the brain that process emotion and threat response. When a trigger sound hits, the brain essentially treats it as a danger signal, not metaphorically but neurologically. The amygdala fires. The autonomic nervous system activates. The body goes into something resembling a mild fight-or-flight response over a chewing sound, and the specific sounds that trigger it follow a consistent, strange pattern, repetitive, often soft, organic sounds made by other humans. Chewing, lip smacking, breathing loudly, pen clicking, sniffling, rarely mechanical sounds, rarely music, rarely random noise. The trigger almost always involves another person, which has led some researchers to speculate that misophonia may be connected to social processing, that the brain is hyper-responding to human sounds in a deeply misfired way, perhaps tied to mirroring systems or some abnormality in how the body encodes other people's physical rhythms. Scientists still don't know the cause, the mechanism, or an effective cure. Therapy helps some people. Noise-canceling headphones help others. But for the estimated 15 to 20% of the population who experience it to some degree, eating lunch in a quiet office remains a low-grade form of psychological combat. Your brain built an alarm system, and it set the sensitivity to someone nearby is eating crackers. Very helpful. Extremely proportionate. Number 6. The Stroop Effect. Here's a quick test. Look at the word red written in blue ink. Now say the color of the ink out loud. Not the word, the color of the ink. Simple, right? Except your brain just briefly short-circuited, stumbled over itself, and probably took a half-second longer than it should have to produce the word blue, a task that should be completely effortless. Identifying a color you've known since you were 4 years old became weirdly difficult because some letters got in the way. Your own literacy just attacked you. This is the Stroop Effect, discovered in 1935 by psychologist John Ridley Stroop, and it remains one of the most replicated findings in all of cognitive science precisely because it reveals something deeply uncomfortable about how your brain processes information. Reading, it turns out, is so automatic, so deeply wired into your cognition after years of practice, that your brain cannot not do it. The moment your eyes land on a word, your brain reads it. You don't choose to. You don't authorize it. It just happens instantly and involuntarily, before your conscious attention has even fully arrived at the scene. The conflict happens because your brain is now processing two pieces of information simultaneously, the word and the color, and they're contradicting each other. Two neural pathways light up and then immediately argue. The reading pathway is faster, louder, and more automatic. The color identification pathway is slower because it requires deliberate attention. So your brain has to actively suppress the wrong answer, the word, in order to produce the right one, the color. That suppression takes measurable time. Milliseconds, yes, but measurable ones, and those milliseconds are a tiny window into the machinery of attention itself. What makes the Stroop effect genuinely strange is that it can't be unlearned. You cannot decide to stop reading automatically. You cannot turn off the pathway. Proficient readers are permanently vulnerable to this conflict for the rest of their literate lives. Scientists use it to study attention, cognitive load, neurological conditions, and even the early stages of dementia, because the ability to suppress that automatic reading response degrades in specific and revealing ways as certain brain conditions develop. All of that, lurking inside a simple party trick with colored words. Your brain built an express lane for reading, and it absolutely refuses to let you take the scenic route. Number 5. Ticklishness, and why you can't tickle yourself. Being tickled is, objectively, a bizarre experience. Produces laughter. It produces what appears on the surface to be a positive social response. And yet, the moment someone approaches your ribs with that specific intention, you feel something closer to mild panic. You want it to stop. You are laughing technically, but you are not happy. Your face says one thing, your nervous system says another, and somehow this is considered a normal interaction between humans. Ticklishness comes in two flavors, which scientists have helpfully named with words no one uses in regular conversation. Nismesis is the light, creeping sensation, a feather dragged across skin, that produces mild discomfort and a reflexive shiver. Gargalesis is the deep, social tickling at the ribs, armpits, and soles of the feet that produces uncontrollable laughter. Only gargalesis requires another person, which is the first clue that something social and strange is embedded in the reflex. Great apes and rats also experience it, and rat tickling studies, which are exactly as delightful as they sound, have shown that the same brain regions associated with positive social play light up during tickling, even when the rat's behavior suggests it would rather be doing literally anything else. But here's the glitch that has genuinely puzzled scientists for decades. You cannot tickle yourself. Try it right now. Go on. Dig your fingers into your own ribs. Nothing. A faint sensation, maybe. Certainly not laughter. Certainly not the involuntary, slightly undignified convulsion that another person produces with the same pressure in the same spot. The reason, as best scientists can tell, is that your cerebellum, the brain region that monitors and predicts your own body's movements, cancels out self-generated sensations before they can register as surprising. Your brain knows what your own hands are about to do, so it preemptively dampens the signal. Surprise, it turns out, is a critical ingredient. Ticklishness is essentially a reflex triggered by unpredictable contact from an external source, which is why being tickled by a stranger is more intense than being tickled by someone you know, and why tickling yourself registers as barely anything at all. Scientists still don't fully agree on why the reflex produces laughter specifically, why certain body parts are universally more ticklish than others, or what the evolutionary purpose of the whole system actually is. Your body developed an elaborate neurological response to unpredictable physical contact that makes you laugh involuntarily and feel vaguely attacked. And the only cure is knowing exactly when it's coming, which completely kills it. The reflex runs entirely on surprise and betrayal. Number 4. Autonomous sensory meridian response. Imagine someone is whispering softly near your ear. Not words, just a calm, low murmur. Or someone is turning the pages of a book very slowly beside you. Or tapping fingernails gently on a wooden surface. For most people, this is mildly pleasant background noise, easily ignored. For a significant portion of the population, these sounds trigger something else entirely. A slow, warm, tingling sensation that begins at the scalp and crawls down the back of the neck and spine, producing a state of deep, almost euphoric calm. Not metaphorically, physically. A full-body response to a whisper. This is ASMR, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, And it sits in a uniquely awkward position in science because it was essentially crowdsourced on the internet long before researchers took it seriously. Millions of people were watching hours of videos featuring someone quietly folding towels or tapping on glass, trying to explain to skeptical friends that it wasn't strange, it was relaxing, and the scientific establishment was largely offline for the first several years of the conversation. When researchers finally started studying it properly, they found that the experience is real, measurable, and physiologically distinct. People who experience ASMR, sometimes called tingleheads, a term that sounds made up but is used in the actual literature, show reduced heart rates and increased skin conductance during trigger videos, suggesting genuine parasympathetic nervous system activation. Brain imaging has hinted at unusual connectivity patterns in ASMR experiencers compared to those who feel nothing from the same stimuli. The triggers, soft voices, careful sounds, slow deliberate movements, cluster around themes of gentle, attentive care, which has led some researchers to speculate the response may be tied to ancient social grooming behaviors, the neurological residue of being carefully tended to by someone you trust. What scientists still cannot explain is why roughly 30 to 40% of people experience it at all, why the other 60% feel absolutely nothing, and what the mechanism is that produces a physical tingling sensation from sound. It's a sensory experience with no agreed-upon neural explanation, triggered by stimuli that seem mundane to half the population and profoundly affecting to the other half. The internet accidentally discovered a neurological phenomenon that science hadn't formally documented yet, which is either humbling or deeply funny depending on how you feel about YouTube. Number 3. The Baader-Meinhof Phenomenon. You learn a new word. Let's say it's sonder. The strange realization that every random passerby has a life as vivid and complex as your own. You've never heard it before in your life. And then, within the next 48 hours, you hear it 3 more times. In a podcast, in a conversation at a coffee shop, in a book you've been reading for 2 weeks that apparently had it in there the whole time. Suddenly this word that didn't exist in your world last Tuesday is apparently everywhere. Used by everyone, woven into the fabric of daily life like it always belonged there. This is the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, also called frequency illusion, and it is one of the cleanest demonstrations of how aggressively your brain filters your own reality without telling you. Here's what's actually happening. The word was always there. The car model you just bought was always on the road. The band you just discovered has been playing at venues in your city for years. None of it is new. What's new is that your brain has decided it's relevant. Your reticular activating system, a bundle of neurons in your brainstem that acts as a kind of neurological bouncer, deciding what sensory information gets let through to conscious awareness, has just updated its guest list. Once something is flagged as meaningful, the brain starts surfacing instances of it that it was previously discarding as background noise. You're not encountering the thing more often. You're noticing it more often, which feels identical from the inside but is categorically different in reality. The genuinely unsettling implication is this: your conscious experience of the world is not a complete feed. It is a heavily curated highlight reel assembled by systems operating entirely below your awareness, based on criteria you never agreed to and cannot directly inspect. You are, in a very literal sense, only seeing what your brain has decided is worth showing you. Everything else, the words, the cars, the songs, the faces, is getting filtered out in real time, silently, constantly. The bouncer outside your consciousness is working around the clock, and you've never once seen the list. Number 2. The McGurk Effect. Watch a video of someone clearly saying the syllable BA. Easy. Obvious. Now, without changing the audio at all. Same recording, same sound. Replace the video with footage of someone mouthing the syllable ga, and suddenly, inexplicably, you hear duh, not ba, not ga, something your ears never received and your eyes never technically saw. A sound your brain invented by averaging 2 conflicting inputs and producing a third option that didn't exist in either. The McGurk Effect, discovered accidentally in 1976 by Harry McGurk and his research assistant John MacDonald, is perhaps the most spectacular demonstration of the fact that hearing is not passive. Your brain does not simply receive sound. It constructs it, actively and continuously, using every available source of information, including visual data from the speaker's face, mouth, and jaw movements to build the most probable interpretation of what's being said. Lip reading, it turns out, is not a specialized skill for the hearing impaired. It is something every human brain does automatically, all the time, without any instruction or awareness. What makes the McGurk effect uniquely maddening is that knowing about it does not make it stop. You can watch the demonstration, be told exactly what is happening and why, understand the mechanism completely, and still hear the phantom syllable. Every time. The illusion is impervious to knowledge because it operates at a level of sensory processing that precedes conscious thought. You cannot think your way out of it. You cannot decide to just hear the audio and ignore the video. The fusion happens before you have any say in the matter. Scientists understand the what of the McGurk effect fairly well at this point. The why the brain weights visual speech information so heavily that it overrides incoming audio, is still being actively studied. The leading theory is predictive processing. Your brain is constantly generating predictions about incoming sensory data and updating them in real time, and lip movements are simply a faster, more reliable signal than sound waves arriving at your eardrums. So it prioritizes them confidently, even when they're wrong, especially when they're wrong. Your brain decided vision was more trustworthy than hearing, committed to that policy about 100,000 years ago, and has absolutely no interest in your feedback. Number 1. Why we can't fully explain consciousness. Here it is. The one that makes neuroscientists go quiet at dinner parties. The glitch so fundamental, so embarrassingly persistent, that it doesn't just sit at the top of this list. It arguably contains every other item on it. All of those strange misfires, the phantom vibrations, the déjà vu, the McGurk effect, the earworms, they're all functions of a brain. But there is something it is like to have a brain. There is an experience happening. Somewhere behind your eyes, something is reading these words and having a reaction to them. And that inner, felt, first-person aliveness is something science cannot explain. Not yet. Possibly not ever. This is called the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers in 1995, and it is hard in a very specific sense. The easy problems, relative term obviously, are things like explaining how the brain processes sensory information, how it integrates data from different systems, how it generates behavior. These are difficult, but they're mechanistic. In principle, given enough time and technology, you could map every neuron, every synapse, every electrochemical signal, and produce a complete functional description of the brain. What you would not have produced, even then, is an explanation for why any of that processing is accompanied by experience. Why there is something it feels like to see the color red, rather than just a set of wavelengths being processed by visual cortex. Why there is something it feels like to be you, rather than just neurons firing in patterns. Some scientists think consciousness is simply what complex information processing feels like from the inside, that once a system reaches sufficient complexity, subjective experience emerges automatically like a phase transition. Others think this explanation quietly sidesteps the actual question. Some philosophers argue that consciousness may never be fully explained in physical terms because it is categorically different from the physical. A small but serious faction of researchers entertains panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, not something the brain produces but something it participates in. None of these camps has won. The debate is ongoing, the evidence is contested, and the mystery is as deep as it was the day someone first looked up at a night sky and wondered who was doing the looking. Every tool science has, every brain scan, every electrode, every model is a product of the very thing it's trying to explain. The brain examining itself is not a neutral instrument. You are a glitch trying to read its own source code, using the glitch as a flashlight in a room that may not have a light switch at all. And somehow that's not terrifying. It's just kind of wonderful. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.